Have you ever found yourself awakening at precisely 3 a.m., your mind unexpectedly alert and your body unsure why it's up so early? It's a common experience among seniors, and if you've been troubled by these pre-dawn stirrings, you might be wondering what hidden forces are disrupting your rest, and what, if anything, they mean for your health. Many people write off 3 a.m. wake-ups as random or assume that aging simply brings fragile sleep. But doctors and sleep researchers suggest there can be more profound reasons. Shifting hormones, changes in our internal clocks, and anxieties unique to later life can all converge to create a pattern of interrupted sleep that, over time, affects not only how you feel in the morning, but your overall well-being. In this conversation, we'll discuss why seniors so often see that 3 o'clock hour glaring back at them from the bedside clock, and what it reveals about your body and mind.
Think of Doris, a 75-year-old who never had issues sleeping in her younger years. She'd close her eyes at 10 p.m., sleep through the night, and greet the sunrise feeling ready for the day. But in her early 70s, a new habit emerged. Almost like clockwork, she would snap awake between 3 and 4 in the morning. Sometimes she dozed off again quickly, but other times her thoughts raced. Was she forgetting something important? Had she paid the bills? How was her daughter faring in another state? The nights wore on, and repeated disruptions sapped her daytime energy. She tried going to bed later, but it didn't matter. She still woke up at that same annoying pre-dawn hour. For a while, Doris considered it an inevitable sign of age. Then she sought advice from a geriatrician who explained that many older adults experience what's known as advanced sleep phase syndrome, or simply the shift in circadian rhythms that often appears in later life. Our internal clocks can begin to run earlier, prompting us to feel sleepy sooner in the evening and awaken prematurely in the wee hours. This alone can account for a big portion of 3 a.m. awakenings. If you're going to bed at 9 p.m. or earlier, maybe because you're tired from the day, your body might consider 3 or 4 in the morning a perfectly normal time to start rousing. Doris realized that if she consistently shifted her bedtime a bit later and allowed more daylight exposure, she sometimes stretched her sleep until closer to dawn. But that didn't solve everything, because other factors were also at play. Another reason seniors find themselves up at 3 a.m. is hormonal fluctuation, particularly involving melatonin and cortisol. Melatonin helps govern your sleep-wake cycle, and as you age, your body generally produces less of it and can release it at less predictable times. Cortisol, a stress hormone, naturally spikes in the early morning to prepare you to face the day. If your body's cortisol rhythm moves forward or goes out of sync, you could be awakened by the surge too early. In younger decades, your system might buffer that spike seamlessly. But in older adulthood, diminishing resilience in hormone regulation can jolt you awake. Sometimes, if your mind is already prone to nighttime worries, a slight shift in these hormones is all it takes. You spring out of slumber, heart may be beating a little fast, feeling a surge of alertness that defies your desire to keep sleeping. Over time, this new pattern can become ingrained, especially if you lie there worrying about not sleeping. That anxiety itself becomes a cue your body starts to associate with the 3 a.m. hour, leading to a frustrating cycle. The net effect is not just some minor inconvenience, but a consistent chunk of lost rest that leaves your body less able to perform physically and mentally. One issue that heavily impacts older adults at night is pain and discomfort from chronic conditions like arthritis, neuropathy, or general stiffness. Even mild joint or muscle pain can flare in the early morning hours when your body's at rest and less distracted. Waking up around 3 a.m. might be partly triggered by pain signals from a hip that's pressed against the mattress or inflamed knees that stiffen when you've been lying motionless for hours. If you're already coping with conditions like fibromyalgia, you might find the wee hours a prime time for discomfort, fueling restless nights. Doris noticed that on nights when her arthritis acted up, she was more likely to awaken and then struggle to settle back down. When you're abruptly aware of discomfort,
your brain shifts from a restful state to a problem-solving mode. You might reposition yourself multiple times, rummage for pillows to support your back, or even shuffle to the living room sofa. All that activity only heightens your alertness. Managing nighttime pain can be tricky. Some might resort to taking painkillers before bed, but these can wear off by 3 a.m. or worse, cause side effects if you need them consistently. Others find that gentle bedtime stretches or heated blankets can help. If pain is a major factor, it's worth discussing with a physician or physical therapist to explore nighttime-friendly strategies so your body won't sabotage your sleep at the same pre-dawn hour. Another subtle but powerful factor is an overactive bladder or general changes in fluid balance. For seniors, it's not unusual to produce more urine overnight or to have reduced bladder capacity. Hormones that concentrate urine during sleep may shift with age, meaning you produce more fluid that your bladder has to hold. If that's the case, waking up at 3 a.m. might just be your bladder crying for attention. But it doesn't end there. Once you're up, turning lights on, walking to the bathroom, you might find yourself more awake than you'd like, especially if any joint or balance issues make the trip a mild ordeal. Then you climb back into bed with the mind swirling, maybe about the day's tasks, maybe about the risk of falling if you get up again. Before you know it, the next hour is spent drifting in and out, never achieving a deep rest. Some seniors try restricting fluids in the evening to limit these bathroom trips, but that can lead to dehydration, especially if you're also taking diuretic medications or dealing with dryness from other conditions. Striking a balance, like not guzzling water right before bed, but still ensuring you're well hydrated earlier in the day, might reduce that 3 a.m. bathroom run. For older men with prostate concerns, nighttime urination can be even more frequent, so ignoring potential prostate treatments can also hamper your efforts to sleep through the night. Stress and psychological factors can be equally potent triggers. Loneliness, grief, and anxiety about the future often weigh heavily on seniors. As the house quiets down and distractions fade, your mind might roam to regrets, worries, or an over-analysis of your health. After all, older adults sometimes face sudden reminders of mortality, a friend's funeral, a doctor's concerning test result, and such thoughts can swirl at 3 a.m., a time that's historically been associated with introspection and the dreaded nighttime mind race. Doris, for instance, used to find herself ruminating about finances, her children's well-being, or the next doctor's appointment whenever she awoke spontaneously. That jolt from one anxious thought can be enough to sabotage the remainder of your sleep. If you're in a cycle of such mental tensions, no improvement in bedtime routine or diet alone will cure your 3 a.m. wake-ups. Instead, it might involve gentle mental health strategies, journaling before bed to offload thoughts, practicing relaxation techniques, or even short-term counseling to address underlying anxieties. These emotional aspects can be easy to dismiss, especially if you think, "Oh, I'm just an old worrier." But they're often the final piece that cements a chronic 3 a.m. habit. Indeed, mental calm is as necessary as a comfortable mattress if you want to rest soundly.
Curiously, the phenomenon of segmented sleep historically was considered normal. Before modern lighting, many people had a first sleep and second sleep, waking up for an hour or two in the middle of the night. They might read by candlelight, pray, or talk quietly before going back to slumber. With the advent of electricity and the notion of an unbroken 8-hour block of sleep, we started viewing any interruption as pathological. Seniors might simply be following a more traditional biphasic pattern. If these awakenings were brief and calm, they might not cause harm. But the modern expectation to stay asleep continuously causes stress the moment you open your eyes at 3 a.m., fueling the feeling that something's wrong. If you do experience these breaks but can return to rest after 15 or 20 minutes, it may not be a serious issue. The trouble arrives when such awakenings lead to a full hour or two of tossing and turning, culminating in a morning of fatigue. At that stage, The question becomes how to navigate back into rest. Some people find it helpful to get out of bed for a short period, read something soothing, then lie down again once drowsiness returns. Others use guided meditation or slow, deep breathing to quell mental chatter. The key is not to wrestle with the fact you woke up, but to accept it and gently steer yourself toward rest again. Another angle is the effect of certain medications or dietary choices that might prime you for a 3 a.m. jolt. Caffeine intake that extends too late in the day can linger in the bloodstream far longer than you realize. Some folks metabolize caffeine slower as they age, meaning a cup of coffee at 3 p.m. can still be enough to sabotage you at 3 a.m. Alcohol, while initially sedating, disrupts deeper sleep stages and often leads to a rebound alertness in the second half of the night. Seniors might assume that a small nightcap helps them doze off, but the payoff can be a restless finish to the night, with an abrupt or shallow waking in those early hours. Meanwhile, certain blood pressure or steroid medications, if taken at the wrong time, can cause mild adrenaline surges or anxious feelings that bubble up a few hours later. It's worth reviewing your entire medication schedule with a doctor, specifically focusing on whether any pill might be better switched to a morning or midday dose. Sometimes a slight adjustment can dramatically reduce those dreaded early morning wake-ups. So what do these 3 a.m. awakenings mean for your overall health and sleep? Firstly, they signal that your body's nighttime rhythms may be out of sync, either from environmental cues like light exposure or lack thereof, or from internal changes like hormone shifts or ailments. Secondly, they can point to unaddressed concerns, physical pain, emotional stress, or even mild breathing troubles that become more pronounced when you're lying down. Third, they can be a natural consequence of advanced sleep phase syndrome, meaning you're genuinely ready to wake up earlier because you're going to bed earlier. If this is the case, you might be able to shift your entire sleep schedule to better match your new internal clock, or simply accept that your prime waking hours start before dawn. That's not necessarily a crisis unless it leads to daytime fatigue or disrupts your responsibilities. Seniors who are retired sometimes find that adopting a 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. schedule is acceptable, granting them quiet morning hours. The problem is when you want or need to stay up later, or if you keep fighting this shift but can't achieve restful, uninterrupted rest. The consequences of ignoring these awakenings can be far-reaching. Chronic sleep fragmentation diminishes mental sharpness, fosters mood swings, and even impairs immune function. Seniors with irregular sleep patterns have a higher risk of falls, confusion, or even cardiovascular events if chronic sleep deprivation leads to higher blood pressure and stress levels. On an emotional level, repeated 3 a.m. awakenings can feed anxiety around bedtime. You start anticipating that dreaded moment, ironically making it even more likely. Over the long haul, some older adults slip into a cycle of sedation, taking strong sleep aids that might lead to drowsiness, confusion, or potential over-medication. By addressing the root causes, be it advanced sleep phase, pain management, medication timing, or emotional well-being, you stand a better chance of preventing these 3 a.m. calls from becoming a permanent fixture. If you're struggling, where should you start? Often, a simple sleep diary can provide insights. Jot down what time you go to bed, approximate time of falling asleep when you first wake, how long you stay awake, and any thoughts or pains you notice. Note also any medications or foods close to bedtime. After a few weeks, patterns might emerge. Maybe you see that on days you skip a nap, you sleep better, or that the nights you drank tea at 4 p.m. coincide with early morning awakenings. Once you see these correlations, you can tweak your routine. Also, discuss your notes with a physician or a sleep specialist. They might suggest a short, supervised trial of melatonin at a specific time, especially if advanced sleep phase is the culprit. Or they might detect signals of a breathing disorder that calls for a sleep study. The more precise your understanding, the easier it is to make targeted changes. For those anxious or worried about life events, Bedtime relaxation techniques or counseling might be more effective than any medication. The calmer your mind, the less likely you'll pop awake steeped in worries. If pain is central, addressing it might require better pillows, a different mattress, or a mild pain reliever, if safe for you, taken so it remains active throughout the night. If an overactive bladder is the issue, a conversation with a urologist might help. You might adjust fluid intake or explore medications that reduce nighttime urine production. Each path is unique, but the unifying principle is that your 3 a.m. awakenings are rarely random. They're typically your body's or mind's way of signaling an unmet need. Keep in mind that occasional pre-dawn wake-ups aren't necessarily alarming. If you quickly fall back asleep and feel refreshed overall, you may not need drastic intervention. But if you find yourself consistently up for an hour or more, feeling tired by midday, or seeing your mood and physical function take a dip, it's time to take it seriously. Striving for perfect sleep every night might be unrealistic at an older age, but aiming for a consistent routine and a reasonable sense of restfulness is within reach for many seniors, especially once they address these underlying triggers. By exploring your environment, maybe dimming electronic screens earlier, dimming lights to signal your brain it's nighttime, and even letting in morning sun to recalibrate your internal clock, you shape your circadian cues. In parallel, practicing gentle exercises during the day can help dissipate pent-up energy, leading to a smoother night. Then, if you still wake up at 3, you can calmly handle it, maybe using a mental relaxation script or reading a few pages of a soothing book, rather than letting frustration hijack your sleep. Ultimately, seniors who experience repeated 3 a.m. awakenings often discover they're ignoring or underestimating something about their health or their environment. While aging changes the architecture of sleep, you're not doomed to restless nights automatically. The solution usually involves a blend of small adjustments, timing bed and waking hours more precisely, learning to manage nighttime pains or bladder calls, checking for sleep apnea or other breathing issues, and ensuring your emotional state is reasonably at peace by bedtime. A wise approach, combined with an acceptance that older bodies sometimes have new rhythms, can reduce those dreaded, abrupt awakenings, or at least make them a minor interruption, rather than a nightly ordeal. Doris ended up forging a new routine, drinking fewer liquids after dinner, going to bed around 10:30 instead of 9:30, using a mild herbal tea to ease nighttime anxiety, and found that while she still occasionally stirred around 3:30 or 4, she was able to roll over and fall back asleep quickly. Her mornings improved, her mood brightened, and she realized these changes weren't complicated, just a matter of listening to her body. So if you're consistently startled by the clock reading 3 a.m., don't resign yourself to a future of bleary-eyed mornings or rely blindly on sleeping pills. Embrace the idea that your body might be whispering clues about an underlying need, whether it's improved pain management, a better bedtime schedule, or a gentle approach to nighttime anxiety. Just by shining a light on that 3 a.m. puzzle, you can start unraveling what your system truly requires. That awareness, combined with practical changes, might yield deeper, more rejuvenating sleep, so you can greet each day with renewed strength, clarity, and the joy that can still flourish in later life.